dirtbags. Washington dirtbags, unions, Acorn, the left, wanted a crash, wanted power, wanted to transform the system. And so they take these people, stir them up, tell them it's the American dream. They get the banks to loan the money. Crash. Now, that is what happened to the housing market. That's what caused the last problem. Now, the debate is how to fix the problem. Well, we did TARP. But now everybody's complaining that the banks, who's saying this? These guys. The banks have all of our money that they took from these people and gave to these people, which these people gave to these people. And these people are going to save us. Now, here's the solution being offered. Remember, top union leader. His solution, do not honor your contract. Refuse to pay it. Watch.
For example, 10% of homeowners, going back to where you started, who are a quarter of all people who own a home are underwater, right? Their home is worth, they're paying more for it than it's worth. 10% of those people are now in strategic default, meaning they're refusing to pay, but they're staying in their home. If you could double that number, you would make banks, put banks on the edge of insolvency again. What would happen if we could organize homeowners en masse to do a mortgage structure? To say, if we get 500,000 people to agree, we'll agree we won't pay our mortgages. It would literally cause a new financial crisis for the banks, not for us. We would be doing quite well because we wouldn't be paying.
So their solution is to break the contract. Notice he didn't say people who cannot. Everybody understands people who cannot. These are people who they refuse. If we can get people to agree, we won't pay our mortgages. So the solution is to be dishonorable. The solution is to not honor your contracts, to not do the right thing. Well, that's kind of tough, isn't it? It'd be doing something that your parents would never ever, and your grandparents would never ever consider doing. But the reasoning is, we're not stealing. It's them. They've been ripping us off. Let me ask you this. Who would make the point that two wrongs make a right? Would you? This board or this board? Who argues that? Would your parents or your grandparents tell you two wrongs make a right? Is it ever okay to be dishonorable and not live up to your responsibility when you are able to? No. And if you don't believe me, it's time you haven't called your mom recently. Call your mom. Remember when mom used to say, I don't care what your sister did. I'm talking about what you did. I said this to my son just the other night. Don't tell me what your sister did. Tell me what you did. The same thing can be said here. Don't tell me what the banks did. What are you doing? When did we change as a nation and become part of the problem? It's not to say that if you can't pay your mortgage, you really can't do it, that you are held to some unreasonable standard. That's what bankruptcy is for. But to do it because you can is different. You signed into that agreement. I'm sorry if the rate has gone up or down. You signed the deal. But Lerner says, no, it's the banks that did it. The banks aren't good guys, but they are definitely not responsible for all of our problems. We are too. Know the difference. So they say you should follow those who are in strategic default. J.P. Morgan Chase could sue Lerner if they so desired. I don't know why they won't. Let me show you what he is planning now and remind you that this banking crisis was caused by groups like Acorn and the unions that would pressure banks into the deals that would make them insolvent. Now, what is his solution? Here.
4 things we could do that could really upset Wall Street. One is if city and state and other government entities demanded to renegotiate their debt because they're paying too much interest. And you might say, well, why would the banks ever do it? Because cities and counties could say, we won't do business in the future with you if you don't renegotiate the debt now, meaning about 1/3 of bank profits generate from dealing with cities and states. So we could leverage the power we have of government to say, we won't do business with you, J.P. Morgan Chase, anymore. unless you do two things. You reduce the price of our interest since your interest rate is down, and second, you rewrite the mortgages for everybody in the community so they can stay in their home. We can make them do that.
Okay, this is it. Now the American dream is retirement, and the state and city and local workers can't get their retirement because the cities are going bankrupt. So what? The unions and people like Acorn come over here and say the American dream is to be able to retire, and these people are screwing you. Come on with us and let's go get the banks. You see how it is repeating itself, and it will have exactly the same ending with a new twist I'll show you about in a few minutes. We're talking about a guy here who is not saying, hey, let's get a constructive idea to get the banks back on track, to help the system, to put the bad guys in jail. No, this is a plan that will collapse the system and, in his own words, lead to a transformative change of government. By the way, that's revolutionary code for overthrow the United States of America. He knows the banks cannot refinance all of these loans. He says it. It will kill them. And that's exactly what he wants. And a lot of people will agree with this because they're thinking short term. All of these people who have their money in retirement, including these people, have their money in the stock market. When the crash comes, you lose everything. But a lot of communities and states will do this because it will be easier for their weasel, I'm sorry, we should not call them Washington, we should change them now to state dirtbags, who don't want to have they don't want to have the responsibility. So they will get along and they'll say, yeah, let's get to banks, because the cities will then get a new reloan, it'll have it all refinanced, and they'll have somebody else to blame, the bank. There is a slogan being tossed around right now by a few progressives, and I've heard it several times, and it's bothered me a lot because it's ridiculous, but Lerner uses the same language and says, this is what we're going to say to get people stirred up. Listen to what he says.
We would connect three ideas. That we're not broke, there's plenty of money. They have the money, we need to get it back. And that they're using Bloomberg and other people in government as the vehicle to try to destroy us.
Okay.
And so that we need to take on those both at the same time.
Stop. Leave this frame up here. We're going to connect on three ideas. That we're not broke, there's plenty of money, and they've got the money, we need to get it back. And they're using people like Bloomberg to destroy us. Well, that's great news. We're not broke. I thought we were $14 trillion in debt. Yeah. Wow. Actually, I was really worried that the Fed just said yesterday that we were on the brink of insolvency, but I'm glad to know we have the money. There's plenty of it. Allow me to define insolvency for the media, because they don't seem appropriately concerned. Insolvency, the inability to pay one's debts as they fall due. Now, how is that not broke? The money we have isn't even real. It's becoming worth less every passing minute because we're monetizing our debt and we just keep printing. So who else is using Lerner's words? If we have the money, they have it. I'll show it to you next. All right. I'm showing you how this whole system works here and what the unions are now planning to do. They're planning to convince you that America is not broke. Well, I have to tell you, we are broke, and to say otherwise is a lie. And dare I ask the question, who is the father of all lies? Oh, I remember. Do I have that Saul Alinsky book? No, I don't have it. Darn it. That is crazy Saul Alinsky, who gave the tip of the hat to Lucifer. You know, that's father of all lies. If you don't think this plot is evil or going to destroy America, you're out of your mind. And if you don't think this plot is in action, you are sadly mistaken. Remember, they say, we have the money. This is what Lerner says. He says, it's coming. We're going to tell people that we have the money, but you just have to get it out of the wrong people's hands. Now, spontaneously, look at the people who are now starting to make this case.
This is the greatest country on earth with the greatest amount of wealth. The problem isn't about the wealth, it's about distribution.
This is a rich country. We have plenty of money. There's plenty of money out there. The question is, how are we going to spend it?
We're not broke. This country is not broke. State of Wisconsin is not broke. There's a ton of cash in this country. What's happened is that we've allowed a vast majority of that cash to be concentrated in the hands of just a few people. And they're not circulating that cash. We've allowed them to take that. That's not theirs. That's a national resource. That's ours.
Okay.